Hello and welcome to the EEPROM 9. Look at what we have here. We have a Kingspoint Micro Executive Vintage Calculator. And she is a beauty. I do love these ones which have the metallized aluminium around them. They do look nice, like my Poseidon, not Pritzatronic MC, whatever it is. I think 85, isn't it? Are you 85? Yeah, MC 85. Which has its own video being restored because it had problems. This one had absolutely nothing wrong with it when I got it. It just switched on and worked, and still has the batteries installed from the person I bought it off of. So 2x2. This one seems to be in constant mode even when it's off. And yes, I know I've hit the negative. Interestingly, it flicks the negative LED on and off, and you might be able to see that. Oh yeah, it's very, very, very dim for you guys because it's only like a little 70s LED. But one of the things is it has a bat low one and it has an overflow one, because unlike the Sinclair, it doesn't let you divide by 0. And it has that beautiful, like, really red glow that they have. And it also has the ability to change the floating points, which, for those of you who don't know what floating point is, that's basically the number of decimal places it will show. So if we set it to, say, 4, it will show 4 digits whenever we do a 2, add 2. It'll always show the decimal point and then 4 behind that, for those of you who don't know what that is. That's all what floating point is. And floating point means it will adjust the decimal place based on how many that are actually being used, so you don't end up with loads of trailing zeros. On off, it's fairly simple. It's a 70s calculator that has a percent key. That in itself is quite rare, unless you get some of the more high-end ones or scientifics. In fact, that's a lot of what the early scientifics had, were things like percent and square root and basic things like that. It's like they look pretty much like a normal full-function one today. It uses a vacuum fluorescent display. Interestingly, individual display digits, which are super duper tiny, and I actually have a good thing for reference, my grandfather's old ruler. And the digits are literally about 1 centimetre high and half a centimetre wide, the actual tubes that you can see there. And for those of you who are still in barbarian country using barbarian measurement standards, it is that and that. That's the inches for those of you who still actually use that. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you trying to measure something this small with inches. You should be looking at millimetres. Anyway, metric versus imperial rand aside, 8-digit display, pretty standard actually. Even on modern calculators, an 8-digit display is pretty standard. Exposed contacts on the switches, which is not the best design thing ever, but this thing's been kept pretty well. Another thing that's quite common on these old calculators is the instructions on how to use them printed on the back. And this is pretty much because this is the period when calculators were very new, cutting edge, like brand new technology, top of the line, innovative. These were a major reason for why home computers even came about. It was off technology that was developed for these. The microprocessor was not developed for the Apollo program, although there were versions of the microprocessor that were developed for military use and whatnot. So yeah, always got to have the most advanced technology to murder each other with. Only 2 screws hold this thing together. Now this thing, once you crack it open, it's not so easy to get inside. So that comes off pretty easy. It's pretty nicely well built. The backboard here, the whole calculator electronics, basically pop out and we can get a look at what the actual tubes look like up close. And just give you an appreciation for how tiny they are compared to my thumbnail, or for better reference, my little finger one. Which, because of the exposure, you can't actually see the dirt under them, which is good. I don't actually know what chipset this uses because I haven't actually figured out how to remove this without desoldering a whole ton of stuff, because it's screwed in here, but then it's basically soldered in at the bottom through the vacuum fluorescent display. You got your usual HV inverter unit that will bring it up to at least 12 volts for the display. A lot of these early ones would use like 30 volts and 1 volt filaments. So these are actually fairly complicated devices. And an interesting heatsink solution on a standard transistor package. But one thing that is removable is the keypad. So we can take him off, and he's just standard sort of membrane, you know, pretty bog standard. And we can get a better look at the front, just to give you an appreciation for what the electronics look like. Yeah, to remove the actual vacuum fluorescent chassis and get a look at the chipset would be, it wouldn't be impossible, but it'd be difficult. But you can see it's a relatively standard sized IC underneath, and in fact, I don't know if I can angle the light. It's a standard plastic dip package, but no, I'm afraid I can't show you what that is, which is a real shame. I will blow the dust off though. But yeah, that is the Kingspoint Micro Executive Vintage Calculator from, I believe, once again, 1973. I seem to be able to get a fair few of these from the 73. But we will, for the first time, pop this off to see if it is actually a rubber membrane or not. It feels like it. This is the bit where everyone's just like, oh, speed it up, speed it up. Studio OBS has had an update recently, and there's a few new functions I've noticed that have appeared that definitely delve into exploring what these are. Sadly, my last two teardowns haven't been particularly successful in the views rating. I'm not entirely sure why either. It's hardly like they're not in the same style. I've done like loads of other teardowns before them. This doesn't actually need taking apart, which is why I haven't actually taken apart the keypad, because I just looked at it. It's just like, yeah, that looks like standard rubber membrane. Nothing. No nice funky switch mechanisms or anything. I mean, I could be wrong. It'd be nice if I was, but I doubt it. Oh, look! Okay, I wasn't expecting springs under the keys, which are absolutely tiny, but it is rubber membrane. But it is nice to see gold-plated tracks and contacts in there, which are not shared by the main motherboard PCB. And we'll give you a close-up view of what the buttons look like. Still, rather quite interesting. Which switch is that? That is the... That might explain why the constant... that might explain why the constant was a bit janky, because that looks like that's been crushed for years. That might be why the constant was stuck on. We just discovered a fault I didn't even realise was there, because this is completely and utterly crushed. Oh, we're going to have to bend him back into position and get... Oh, well. Who'd have thought? There we goes. So he looks like he should go... yeah, he can go that way round. Yeah, you've definitely been crushed. I wonder how that happened. Ha! There we go, it's a little repair we didn't realise we'd be doing. I wonder if this was a factory thing that just got missed at the factory. It does make you wonder. Just a bit of a fail in the quality control of the Kingspoint in this part. This is a pretty nicely built calculator. That should do it. And we make sure to be nice and gentle putting this all back together. I quite like the springs over the switches just to keep them in line. That's actually quite a nice bit of design right there. Just hold this together while we get a few screws in. And what we might do, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to give you the pain of watching this go back together because it is a bit more long-winded than, say, the Sinclair that I just did. Oh, look, you can't see anything of what I'm doing. Okay, it's now at a state where it's at least holding itself in. Oh, light aircraft is going up past above. Probably can't be heard over the background noise in the audio though. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a Spitfire or anything exciting. Be quite cool to have an RC Spitfire. It's like technically you could actually make your own cruise missile out of RC parts, but then you can make a weapon out of anything if you really, really are inclined to. That's actually one of the things Bruce did that does the RC model reviews channel on XJet and whatnot. He actually built a proof of concept. The government didn't like that. Apparently they ended up making a bit of a deal. Or probably no, the government more of a threat. If you keep doing this, you're going to go to prison or something. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it's all going back. There we go. Now it's all back how it should be. This thing isn't always the most convenient thing to get back together. Orange goes first, then brown. But yeah, I found that quite interesting. There's actually a new article. You can still find the article online if you look for it. I'm curious to see if that actually fixes my problem with actually someone on Facebook actually commented my use of a Swiss Army knife. Yes, I absolutely love these. They're brilliant. My mum should have brought me one of these when I was a teenager because they're just so useful. They're such a useful little general purpose tool. So yeah, you still as expected. So now 2 times 2. Ah, you're still acting as a... Ah, the constant switch is on. Switch it off. 2 times 2. Yeah! 2 times 2. Yeah! Haha! Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that's been like that for a long time. Probably from the factory. I was thinking that was weird that this calculator did constants completely different to every other calculator that does them. But yeah, that is the Kingspoint Micro Executive. It's a nice little, well, big handheld calculator from, I think, 1973. I would have to Google it online. It's either from 73 or 72, and I'm thinking 73. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you found it interesting.